Hey, hello. This is Connor here in Pittsburgh, and welcome to the stream. This is Pittsburgh Papercraft. This is a chill drawing stream, as I believe I've called it, and I am here in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to be drawing some stuff tonight. And let me get that started. We're going to be drawing some ferns tonight, and the question is, there we go, cool, ferns. The question is, we want to make these dimensional, right? We want to make them into something like this, this bridge trestle, a three-dimensional papercraft object. But ferns are tough, you know, like they have a lot of different edges, sides, right? This is a pretty simple little train station, and it's still got a top, a bottom, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. So 8 sides total, right? And each one of those edges needs to get cut or scored or folded. So a fern, just looking at this guy here, you know, if you can see the mouse, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then double that, that's 34. That's 34 different things to kind of cut out just to get one fern edge. It's a lot to draw. It's maybe too much to cut, right? I mean, drawing's one thing, but to have people actually have to trim out either each one of these fiddle heads or what have you. Oh, it's no good. It's not a good path. So I've been thinking this week about a solution for how to get these ferns drawn so that they can be sort of sensibly arranged. And I will show you guys that shortly. Just gotta do one quick thing. Just get the stream started. Okay, cool. We are all set up. So, the question is, how do we work this? How do we take, today is Saturday. Well, it's good to establish that habit. How do we take ferns, which fundamentally are a fractal thing that has a ton of edges compared to its surface area. So this is surface area is much smaller than edge distance. Total edge length. Right, ferns are the worst. Oh man. They have lots of tiny, small, thin protrusions. I imagine cutting that with scissors. Too many cuts. It's too much. So what do we do? What do we do to turn it more into a platonic solid? Well, it turns out that the Victorians actually solved this problem 100 years ago. Not sort of our problem directly, but the related sort of overarching problem, which I should be able to pull over right here. Cool, here we go. Wardian Cases. A Wardian case. This bad boy. It is a very early form of terrarium. They were built to protect plants, both to like get them through their ocean voyages and also for controlling their environment while they're actually kind of growing in this smoggy industrial city in London. So, um, right, credit to Dr. Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward for inventing them. And as you can see, they grow in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. So, what we are going to do is, because we're going to try to draw flat edges, we're going to design a Wardian case that's full of ferns, and we are going to kind of make it, model it after these kind of, I don't know, will you zoom? I don't know. These kind of sort of furniture pieces, right? These cases that hold these plants, but which also have kind of a structure. Yeah, you can almost see that this is meant to be the edge of a train station, kind of a platform that has a metal steel edge here, and then this is a stone platform with stairs. Anyway, you can see that it kind of has some similar geometry to this guy over here, right? Like, we're already kind of halfway there. And what we can do to make things even easier, I kind of already set one up, and what we can do is, as we draw the ferns on here, we'll draw them as if we're looking almost like through an aquarium, right? And so when you're looking at something that's in an aquarium, it's as if all that stuff is right up against the surface, and then because water refracts so differently than air does, when you're looking at it from this other face, you really see a view in from that face, you know. You zoom in that way. When you're looking from this face, you see this view here. When you're looking kind of diagonally or from the top, you're looking down. There we go. And yeah, so it's accomplishable. So the design here, I made this guy to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches wide. It is 1, 2, 3 inches tall. It's half an inch in diameter, and then there's another side, and down at the bottom here there is an even further side, so that it has a top, front, a back, and a bottom side. And we are going to fill this guy with ferns. Now you're kind of wondering, what does it look like? What vision do I have here? What kind of Wardian case is going to have these ferns? And, well, let me start to draw it. This is just kind of a side view. I'll explain what's going on with this here when we draw it from a different angle. And the real trick to drawing ferns is to get good at drawing this this kind of V shape, but knowing where you're going to land that point, right? So to try to give a sort of similarity to the roundness of either side of this fern. This is kind of the long leaf, and then I think, if I remember correctly, or if I look at the diagram, right, so this is a frond, let's actually define our terms. This is really blown out. Okay, wow, there's a lot of weird shadows going on now. But I'm trying to keep it from all getting blown out. I'm gonna figure out how to get the lighting here to work better, but this is good. Okay, so that's a frond, and then each one of these little guys is called a pina, or a pina, and then I believe that the plural is pinae, Latin. And this pinae is a term that is like a Latin term that I think gets applied to all kinds of things that have little subfronds, we'll call them. So anyway, where am I going with that? So this side of the leaf has kind of this shape, and this fern is dimensional, so I'm going to have the other side, I'm going to have the fern kind of leaning away from us like that, leaning away. So here I'm going to draw, actually not quite all of the stuff that you would imagine this fern would have to draw, because I want these leaves to kind of droop, these pinae to droop, pinae to droop, and be kind of hidden from view. Right. So I'll actually extend this up a little bit more. Right. So in general, the plan is going to be from the side to have this be a planter. We can put all kinds of cool designs in there that we want, and then it to have this kind of external frame and to have a really solid back. So from at an angle, what this looks like is kind of an upright sheet of corrugated steel, like you'd find on a roof, and that is inset into kind of a stone trough planter. These are some weeping holes for the planter. This is kind of where the soil goes. And then out of this you got all your different fronds, and out of those they each have pinna. And there's also this kind of metal, just a very light little superstructure, just a suggestion of kind of a box-like structure, so not very many uprights and very thin ones. So I can almost imagine that this, we'll call this A, B, C, D, E, that's E here, A, E. Cool. So A is corrugated steel. This is a super common material in Pittsburgh. What it basically looks like is like any other kind of corrugated roofing product. You might have seen a lot of corrugated plastic and corrugated aluminum, except that this is made out of, this was meant to be the roofing material for a big factory, or the fencing material for a big industrial operation, and so you make it out of real serious, you know, 1/8 of an inch steel or 1/4 inch steel, and you have big machines that do the corrugating. It's not like box steel or other steel that has like creases in it. This corrugation, when you're looking at it from the side, is very wavy because it really is kind of a series of curves and counter curves which were bent into the metal, right? It's just a bunch of bends on a nice even bend, so that there's not really any straightness between the bends. They just flow into each other like a sine wave. When you have corrugated steel like this as an external building material, it's usually Core 10 steel. Core 10 steel is a particular kind of steel that U.S. Steel started to manufacture, and now it's become kind of a generic term for weatherproof steels that are manufactured by all kinds of folks. The way that Core 10 steel works is that this outer part actually oxidizes really fast, and it rusts on purpose because the rust only goes just a little bit into the structure and then stops and becomes kind of like an oxidized coating that doesn't need to have paint be put on it. It won't rust any further. Once it does that initial oxidation, that exterior kind of shell of oxidized steel stays that way for thousands of years. And so Core 10 steel is a great kind of steel to use when you're building infrastructure and when you're building kind of highway infrastructure that's meant to have exposed steel materials. The U.S. Steel building downtown is blackish brown on the exterior because the whole exterior of the building is made out of Core 10 steel, and it used to actually flake onto the other buildings, which is a different story downtown, but they ended up having to pay out to the surrounding buildings for rusting on them so much. So this is probably, this is like tube steel. Right, and this would be this kind of standard black tube steel that you find in all kinds of hobby projects. You just spot weld it together at the top and bottom and stuff, but cutting it really cleanly and making those really nice welds is a tough thing to do. So it's an important component. Then you have the ferns themselves. They're fronds. And fiddleheads. D. Oh yeah, that's C, D. We got the box. So this is a cement decorative planter box. These are one-way weaving holes. That's important because kind of one of the elements that I'm trying to accomplish with these ferns, and we'll call this the filter. Filter fern bank is the thing that we're going to draw. So the reason that these exist within the factory floor, the reason that I'd like to design these walls, there's a couple reasons. One, I'd like them to be a wall, a big wide divider wall that can really divide off whole sections and kind of subdivide a piece of the factory floor into either rooms or just sort of C-shaped work areas where different encounters can occur and the factory floor can be built to be in a more dungeon-like manner. But the factory floor has all kinds of industrial processes, off-gassing, all kinds of bad stuff, and so I've been thinking about the sort of gas capture and filtration system that these newts would have and how it would work. And I like the notion that ancient ferns will eventually become kind of coal, right? That they are carbon sinks, and that they are kind of bringing things from their old environment into the ground and then preserving them for a long time, and then we use that as coal. And so if these are kind of purpose-built, fast ecologies of ferns that are designed to pull those harsh chemicals that these industrial processes make out of the air and into their kind of fern plant bodies, and then when they go, that compost can be processed and those minerals can be pulled back out and those dangerous chemicals can be neutralized. So the idea is to have these kind of mystical big ferns that grow 10, 15 feet tall in these giant Wardian cases, because at scale, 3 inches tall is 15 feet, right? One inch is 5 feet in the D&D world. So this is a big Wardian case with oversized ferns in it that we're going to be drawing. Right. So the notion is we have these industrial processes. This is an iron furnace, and from the iron furnace is produced all kinds of cool iron and stuff, and that's good. But there's also these gases coming out, and that's no good. So those get captured. Into a system, and they get piped kind of up and down through the rock. For temperature regulation, so that the superheating gases cool down, and then they come back out and they start going through these fern banks. And like the original Wardian cases, this is actually kind of a sealed environment, and I guess we're going to want to build maybe a port there, or maybe more likely a port up in the glass, so that conceivably they can snap together in some way. Maybe we don't need to put those there. Maybe they can be implied just by building these things right next to each other. Cool. Well, so that's kind of what I think we're going to do tonight. How long have we been going? Let me just check in. Anybody in the chat? Anybody watching? I can't quite tell. Cool. Well, we've been streaming for, wow, half an hour already. Okay, I'm gonna go away from the keyboard for a second and just take a little break, kind of drink some coffee. Uh, when I come back, we'll start drawing on this paper craft. So let me just arrange this. There's my pen. Good artist habit. Cap. Take care of your tools. Like the phone's gonna ring and you're gonna have to leave suddenly. You know, like if you stop with a tool, put it down and away, proper, in case you need to bolt. Uh, I'll be back in a little bit. Just give me about 3 or 4 minutes, and I shall return for more chill streaming. Yeah, just do that all here. Cool. Okay, and we are back. Cool. So, we got the plan. We got the paper craft. Started getting it all set up. Withdraw. Oh. One thing. This is my pouch where all the fresh pens are. So, boom. Fresh one. Fresh from the art supplies. Okay, so this is the top of the piece. We'll make this the front where the ferns will be. Well, let's make I'm gonna have to move this guy a little bit. Mr. Giant Panther. Yeah, just to give you guys a little bit more view of what I'm doing. That was an early mistake right there. So, one thing to note is that I know that I'm going to do some digital post-processing to this. This is just a half-inch dot grid printed in grayscale at 50% gray. So when you scan it in, it's really easy just to like take the dots away. They basically show up as one sort of light gray pixel. So it's not a big deal to deal with them. But anyway, there will be a digital step after this, so there's going to be mistakes. I'm going to leave the mistakes in because the idea is I'm going to fix them digitally in post. Pretty much everything I'm drawing with the end goal in mind that it's going to be high resolution enough that someone can convert it to vector graphics and print it out really big. I haven't needed to do that yet, but I know that that's a step that I want to be able to achieve down the road. And so, anyway, the point is, any mistakes are going to be sort of digitally fixable because I've designed the work process to work that way. Right, so this is the bottom of the thing. I almost always put kind of information about what the thing is on the bottom of each one of these different templates. So I won't stop here. Today is April 4th. This is a Wardian filter fern bank. ConnorSP.com, that's my website, and this particular thing is being made under the auspices of Pittsburgh Papercraft. Sorry, I'm just blowing on the ink to dry it quickly because I don't want it to smear. Mm. Mm. So the planter that these ferns are in is cement. I'm actually going to make it pretty low. Rather than make it this full 5 feet, I'm actually going to cap it at just this 2.5 foot mark. Actually, in the current lineup of papercraft available, oh no, that's not true. There's, I was going to say that in the current lineup, there are not any papercraft that have any half inches to them, but that is not true. There is at least one. There's a kind of a levee walkway that I made that's part of the social distancing papercraft set that I put out. Oh, I guess it was last month. Let me put that out. But it's made out of cement, and it's a kind of cement that's pretty common in the factory floor world. It is this kind of bubbly stone, and I assume that because it's a Dungeons and Dragons world, that they transmute rock to mud, that they have a whole cement industry that's made very easily by transmuting rock to mud, pouring that mud into an appropriately shaped mold, and then transmuting mud to stone, and it hardens in that mold, instantly, per the spell. So there you go. Easy way to just repetitively cast tons and tons of industrial items, as long as they're made out of rock/mud, which is easy to acquire. So I like to think of it as this kind of bluish green, kind of limestone-ish stone that makes this really nice, planter cement. So the other thing I like to do with these papercraft is I like to make sure that the end user always has a good sense when using the papercraft, that they kind of reinforce. Oh right, yeah, here. This is the embankment haft that has this little half guy right here. And this you can see is that same kind of stone. Right, this is what I'm talking about. This actually kind of reinforces the different grids that cut across this. I've marked them very gently for myself, every inch. But it's good to leave those in for the end users as well. And it's okay to do them slightly differently than than just a straight line, right? You can do something like you can include, in this case, I'm going to include kind of this, kind of a like two circles that are slightly overlapping, almost like a MasterCard symbol or something like that. And just like a cartouche, right? And this is going to be the one of these formal weeping holes for the water to come out, should there be water. And if there's kind of a question about why do they need to be so formal, why do they have all of this stonework around them? Well, this is part of the mechanism, right? It's a one-way valve, so it needs to have some extra stuff going on. So I'm going to space these actually every 2 inches across this, which will produce an uneven number of them, but that's okay. Is that okay? Do I want to do that? No. I want to have one here. I want to have one right there. And I want to have one right in the very middle. I think that'll be pretty pleasing. So, and here, my drawing is represent the dark lines that I'm drawing are representing 2 different things. They're representing both the pockmarks that are characteristic of this stone, the texture of this stone, and they're representing these relief lines that are being carved in here. Let's just hop back over here, and I think I just want to give you guys kind of a visual for how I feel like these weeping holes look. Oh, so I've been looking. My head has been very close to the camera. It's because I wasn't wearing my glasses. Can't see without my glasses. That's a reference to a very sad movie. This little kid is dead, and at the funeral, his best friend, who's like a young girl, is like, he doesn't have his glasses, he can't see without his glasses, and it's really, it's rough. Kid gets like stung to death by bees. I don't know. I watched that movie in circumstances where I didn't really have control of the remote. It was like a public television. It was sort of like, pay attention to this movie or have to participate in a thing that I didn't want to participate in because I was a child. And I just didn't want to talk to adults at whatever adult function was happening because they were all talking about nerd stuff. Yeah, I'm talking about this a lot because I'm trying to let the name of the movie come to my head, come to my mind. It doesn't seem to be doing so, but that's all right. Right. Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. So, important thing. When we get down to the bottom here, you can see that these guys are actually dimensional. You know, this is a relief. These channels really are channels. Water would pool around on the floor like that. Yeah. Cool. So that's what I'm going for with that. And, this kind of like bifurcated tunnel goes back, I guess, like into the boxy chamber of the inside of this thing. So we're back. I'm going for the center one, which is this one. This time I'm going to go from the outside in. Okay. That actually ended up being less uniform. With not quite what I expected. That is all right. So this stone is a stone that started as a series of studies about a year ago of different kinds of stone textures that I liked and ways of trying to convey either pebbles inset in concrete or kind of stone that had natural cavities in it, small bubbles, things like that. And now it's become almost its own kind of graphic language. You can see sort of versions of it across all of these other pages that I've done in the past. It's now become kind of abstract from materials in our world and become sort of a graphical implication of the material rather than something that resembles something in real life, right? It's a cartoon of how stone works in the way that role-playing games have to simulate, and sometimes that becomes cartoonish. This simulated stone, this cartographic papercraft stone, is not necessarily how actual stone actually looks. This is a society of newts with access to a fair amount of industrial manufacture and a prophetic device in the form of giant eggs that they build every year that give them prophecy for how to build other giant eggs and also how to make new kinds of technological leaps and magical leaps and techno-magical leaps in understanding in order to accomplish those sort of impossible poetical goals that they're given every year. And so as such, the assumption is that each one of these pieces of this newt-created environment was itself created by someone who was a little bit of an artist and who built this thing with a little bit of artifice. And so, yeah, there's, in the same way that fronds are like big pinna, and frond is kind of like a strange version of a leaf. There's a little bit of a fractal nature to how I've been trying to work it's a little bit of a, I guess it's holistic across scale. What I'm trying to achieve is a method of working where the work itself is pleasurable to do, it's pleasurable work to receive and enjoy. Paying for it feels easy and natural. Watching me work on it is soothing. I'm trying to cultivate the same vibe that this air purifying Wardian case of ferns, giant ferns, is trying to cultivate. I am trying to instantiate this very calming, healing metaphor for myself and for you guys and for whatever kind of tabletop creations you end up wanting to build. This can be an object in one of those worlds or many of those worlds. That would make me super pleased to see. So far we got kind of the front edge there. Oh, hey, I even drew all 3 leaping holes where I thought they would go. That's very good of me. How long have we been going? I'm recording for almost a whole hour now. That's awesome. So cool. Finally, get to start drawing some ferns, right? So the back, when you're looking through the front of this case, right? Let's do a little bit. And jump into planning. I know it seems like I won't get to drawing ferns, and you're right. I'm a little intimidated by them, but looking from the front, we're going to see the planter box, got that. We're going to see this background. The background we're going to do over here, and then what we're going to do is digitally afterwards. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to move it here and flip it and translate it so that it is kind of appropriately matched front side to back side. And then I'm going to make it 50% blown out, kind of like white out, and 50% gray, so that it is both further away and also a little bit darker because it is a background, you know. But in that way, it'll be what you see behind the ferns that I'm going to draw here. So I'm just going to draw the foreground here. The foreground as well as the uprights, these uprights here. So we established earlier, oh, how did we do that? So I'd like to put the uprights here and here. And then I'd like to put another upright in the middle. I don't know that that makes sense. Because putting them here and here does get them... Oh, you know what? I did kind of screw things up by putting this in the middle. I'm going to just very narrowly put just an extra little thing to draw right there, and another one right here. This is to maintain that 1-inch grid, right? That's part of why I'm putting these details in, is to imply the grid without actually having everything I draw look like it's got this grid. So this is the outer piece of the Wardian case. Let's see if I can pull up. Looking at these Wardian cases. Another one here, another one there. This is what I'm going for, right? Just this regular steel. And this is the frontmost thing, so this is really the frame for all of the ferns. And that way, it's the frame for the viewer's eye, and so it is just as important to get these sort of parallel black lines that describe the steel tubing, to get them totally spot on. To really try to make this feel like a believable object. One of the easy ways to depict that there's a little bit of framing glass is to just drop a little bit of an extra line as if there's a little bit more light reflecting off of this in its corners, which is, well, not in its corners, but right at the edges where the glass pane interacts with the rest of the surface. The iron bars. So we hadn't finished up our decisions here. I want there to be a method of access. I think it's important for someone to be able to get into this. And I also want to define, I guess, a door frame is what I want, or like a door frame in the middle here. That is going to require more bracing than I think makes a lot of sense. So maybe what I'll actually do is I'll leave this open, I'll leave it alone. That's not, my instinct's always to cram things in here, and I have to learn to be a little bit less is more, to give things a little bit more space. Because in the end, what this is going to look like is going to be delightful. And it's going to be good that it is so light, right? It can always get darker, but for this initial drawing, as long as I keep things as unfilled in as possible, right, while still conveying all of the objects, then I can always go back in and add more shading, right? You can always make it darker later. You know, but you can't, harder to make it lighter later. It's always harder to make it lighter later. Harder to make it lighter later. Cool. So that's that. And I think I'm ready to dive in with the ferns. You know, so something about these new environments is that not everything needs to be quite at the scale that it doesn't need to be self-similar in scale. It's okay if the same species is grown in little baby versions and big versions and micro versions and versions that are too big to fit on this page because each frond, learning these words, frond, pina, pine, that might be wrong. I made that up an hour ago, perhaps. Whoa, have we been recording for an hour? Is that true? Yeah, wow, okay, we've been recording for a whole hour, that's excellent. Cool, well, let's actually draw some plants, man. Stop talking about it and do it. Yeah. This is what I really want to capture, right? I really want to get... zoom in, even. Oh, no. Zoom in? Yeah. Excellent. This is what I want. I'm going to go for this guy. Right here. This bad boy. And that doesn't quite make sense for how ferns work. And I'm going to be foreshortening a little bit and cheating a little bit. That is all right with me. So, what we're looking at with these fiddleheads, man, if I've been drawing so you guys can't see it, that would be frustrating, I'm sure. Oh, okay. What we're drawing with these fiddleheads is we are drawing what a fiddlehead is it's actually the whole fern, right? So it is the stem here going all the way up and to its natural conclusion up here, and here we're actually just gonna trace that right in. And it's one big spiral, and over time, basically the fern pumps it full of water and makes it get bigger and bigger. You know, all of these things start as tiny little structures, and then they fractal out and become big versions of themselves. But inside of this stem, it has fronds that come off, and then each frond looks like a stem and has pinna that come off. And if you look at each pinna, they usually have little teeth, so it's just it's fronds and pinna all the way down, and that's delightful. That's something I love about ferns, and so I am more than happy to just draw these guys. Most excellent. And as we rise higher and higher in this plant, you can see that the fronds get smaller and smaller, though their spacing stays the same. So, the relative distance grows and grows, we get to see more and more of these distinct kind of feathery fronds and pinna, until we get to the point where this whole guy starts spiraling, and what the fiddlehead truly is just all of those same parts that you see on the rest of these pinna and on all of these fronds, but they haven't unwound yet, right? They are not articulated, they are still bunched up. And so rather than being open and free and visible, they're not. They are in this little curlicue. But drawing them, all you gotta do is just draw that same stuff you were drawing, and draw kind of the last frond that interacts with the spirally guy. All right. So over here, what is this stuff? How is this accomplished? This other side of the fern is, fronds are mostly out of view. They're kind of behind the stem, or they're just not a big part of the part of what you can see, but they are there, so we'll draw them. They're just these little arcs. And at the top here, they almost are just individual little hairs. One of the things about drawing is that you have to pick your targets. And what I mean by that is that the information that real life has and the information that, a reference photo or your imagination or however else you're kind of deriving the picture that you're trying to get down, it might have a whole lot of detail, but you can't capture all that detail. You have to pick just some of it, and you have to exclude the rest of it. So, a little bit like a digital camera that's been overexposed, you just gotta let go of some of it, and you have to say, I can't draw every one of these. If this was a blown out photo, I would only see just one. Blow it out for you guys. I don't know how visible that is. Up here at the top, you just see these one individual little fronds. Yeah. This is going pretty well. Oh, hey, there's voices happening in the background music. How far have we strayed? Oh, okay, cool. Well, we were listening to Scones Volume 2 by PCIII for quite some time. We listened to that whole album, actually, and then we were listening to Nocturne by Parade. That was a single. And then we just finished up, it looks like, Foot, Mood, and Wind by King Imagine. And this is now nowhere. I can imagine from next to nowhere.exe. I'm actually going to turn it down. We don't totally need all this music, especially because I'm kind of wrapping up. Well, maybe I'm wrapping up. I don't know. Do I feel tired? Yeah, I'm tired, but I also just like not gotten to draw these ferns, and I've been like wanting to. So, like, come on, man. Let's at least get like one more. That'd be good. Right. This is a different species. Look at how cool that is. This is some awesome, amazing spiral work. Right. This is what's gonna go in stone and caps. Right. So you're wondering what this is. This is fold. This is a little tab, so that when you put them together, it folds under. You tape that, glue it, and then you have two edges and a corner. Good to go. Right. So this awesome spiral, I am going to represent. Just using lines. Because this is a very small shape. And there's not a lot of room. I'm also adding just a little bit of shading. That's to imply, right, I forgot. There's some amount of stone. Material that goes, stone texture that goes right through all this. Yes, cool. Beautiful. Yeah, cool. This was probably more darkness than I needed to actually add, but it's okay. Right, so now this is a fiddlehead. These represent kind of two fiddleheads entwining. Perfect. And this is true on this side as well. Right. So, let's go ahead. I know I need to finish drawing that, but I'm going to go ahead and do this step here. Just post haste. I don't want to accidentally draw this twice, so This is another tab. This is another tab. And up top here, this is another tab. And this here, this here. It might be in the final product that these fold under tabs. You don't glue them because there's going to be real overlap, right? As these guys come together, this is going to fold in here, this one's going to fold in here. You're going to glue it on top. And this thing, it would be good to have this tab, right? But actually, if you just cut it, put it down first, fold this down second, fold that down third, and adhere these two together, this will just stay in place in the center of the thing anyway, and that'll be top notch. We won't need to worry about very much at all. All right. Cool. There will be a similar problem with these tabs down here. And it'll have a similar solution. You just want to tape them. That's not a big deal at all, right? So, because these sides are relatively similar to each other, one of the things that I like to do when I draw these is make two different versions of the same side, and then digitally, doing that gives me the option later digitally of actually picking one and saying, oh, no, this was the much better one, and just duplicating it in the two places that it would go. Yeah, and so this is just another try, just another. I won't admit to this other one being an error. I'm just going to make two different versions, and later I am going to pick one that works better for the audience, which is you guys, and I'm going to be proud of having made both. This is a good distancing practice to do, right? Part of drawing these is that I love to draw these. I'm drawing these with or without an audience. YouTube Looks like I don't have any concurrent viewers right now, and that's alright. Because the job right here is just to draw, right? This is all just to get me to keep my butt in the chair and draw. Here we have a whole bunch of fiddleheads. These guys are brand new. Let's put them over here. One of the things I've really been learning to do, as I've said, is to just make art, and while I'm in this art making space, to really just not worry at all, right? My only job is to just draw stuff, right? Like, I don't really need to worry about whether it's good or not, for other people or for me. Whatever it needs to get to, it needs to get to, and I am along for the ride. And sometimes it takes quite a while to draw stuff, and sometimes it doesn't, you know. And either way is fine with me. Either way is good. Maybe that's a little bit of martial arts, you know, that I'm trying to apply to the arts. That having a soft stance, that approaching this in a very calm way. No expectations of myself, no expectations of the practice, no expectations of the moment. Means that it just goes well, you know, I'm loose. I'm not feeling bad or weird about anything. I'm just taking my time, drawing the stuff I want to draw the way I care to draw it, you know, and that's all gravy. These ferns are quite hairy. There's not a lot of pinna to draw. There's not a lot of fronds to draw because they are very fresh fiddleheads, and they're a species that doesn't seem to have that kind of clear swirliness that these sort of hypothetical guys, not hypothetical, archetypal, platonic ideals of a spirally guy, a fiddlehead. It's not quite what these real life guys are doing, so very interesting to draw, especially considering just how little information, light information, I mean, is supposed to kind of come and go through these. This doesn't even have a second edge, right? I only drew that leading edge because that whole second edge over here is just all hair. Oh, yawn frequency is going up. This has been really productive, and so I can't quit you yet. I've been streaming. It's been just going so well. I am a sucker for sweet techno beats, though. It might also be what's keeping us here. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, what time is it? I'm not even worried about how long have I been recording. I'm worried about the actual time it is. Oh, wow. Okay, it's 10 o'clock p.m. I usually go to bed around 10, so this is like some real bedtime time for me. This is quite a lot. I had no idea I would stream so long. Here, let's click on a close-up, see how this works. Cool. Alright, so that's what we got so far. Looks better in real life than on here. It's going to be upside down for y'all, and for that I apologize, but cool. I hope you guys can see some of the detail there. I like how these are progressing. I'm going to need to do more of them, right? They need more because this is just the front view. The back view are going to be more like silhouettes. This is going to be more photorealistic, I think, in this panel. And I have to have ones that cross between the panels too, right? I don't want it to be a triptych. It is one continuous set of ferns growing in here. And there's that kind of too dark connection valve. It's also maybe a relief, a bond relief drawing of this cycle of spirals, this fiddlehead cycle, and there's the slightly more clear fiddlehead cycle on that side. Yeah, so stay tuned. I have another drawing session lined up to do with you guys tomorrow. That should be most excellent. What time is that happening? That is occurring at... Oh my god. 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. That is 1 p.m. Central, or 11 a.m. Pacific. We'll just skip noon on Mountain Time. That's how I feel about Mountain Time. That's not true. If you guys are hanging out in Denver or whatever else is on Mountain Time, Wyoming, yeah. Sorry, Mountain Time. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. This has been a great stream. What music is this now? Where are we at? This is still King Imagine. We've been blowing through nextnowhere.exe, which it lists as ambient, IDM, down-tempo piano. That is not what we've been hearing. We've been hearing a lot of people breathing and rainfall, and I don't even know. Yeah, but hey, them's the breaks with the Free Music Archive under Creative Commons and other licenses. Boom! Free and open source software or services or content or whatever. FOSS. I love me some FOSS. Open culture. Anyway, I'm going to work on this papercraft more tomorrow. You guys are awesome. Here, look, it's a plastic succulent. I don't know why. Nothing. I don't know how to do lighting. I'm going to look up how to be a filmmaker. Yeah, I'm tired. Have a good night, guys. Have a great night.